Culture is a very broad context.
My heart is in culture.
Whatever you do, education you have, what you eat, everything, that is the library of living. That is culture, what culture is.
Culture is the nexus. It is the pillar of who we are as communities. It is how we look at each other. It is how we define our past, project our future, how we relate with ourselves and with other nations and with other communities. So culture, in a way, is the context in which we conduct our lives, the context in which we are able to ask ourselves, how developed are we as a community? Where do we want to go? And if we want to go, what are the pillars and the boundaries that we should take?
And it is very important for members of a given culture to learn their culture, to understand why they do things the way they do, why their ancestors have done things the way they did.
Culture is the library of how you have always lived.
There's material culture and there is a non-material culture. It's actually the totality, their music, their dance, their art, their values, norms, their worship, their religion. It's a totality of a people's way of life.
When we talk about Modokoi, when we talk about how people marry, that is Kamba culture, and my friend Chengo is part of that culture. But when somebody called Mudusi in Matu, in Kangundo, in Gadonseni, is sitting that nyamachoma with pilipili and kachumbari and ugali, is now engaged in something much higher than Kamba culture, that is Kenyan culture. Because nyamachoma, kachumbari is part of Kenyan culture. There's a young lady there called, I was told she's called Modeo. Now Modeo, when she was sitting there, I looked at her and I noticed that she's dressed, she has shoes and she has maroon trousers and she has a green t-shirt and she has glasses. The way Modeo is dressed, believe me, is exactly the way a young woman is dressed in Barcelona today. Besides what I've said, Modeo has other pieces of attire, but the way she's dressed is exactly the way a young woman like her is dressed in Jerusalem. In other words, whereas Modeo enjoys and appreciates Kamba culture, because she speaks Kikamba, and she can enjoy Modokoi, and she speaks Sheng, which is part of the Kenyan culture, there is another level, the third layer, is that Modeo also belongs to this, to the international culture.
Communities are what they are now and who they are because of their culture.
Culture is people's religion. That is the word.
It is necessary to learn about one's culture.
So that
you also know why you value some things,
we should be able to project how our great-grandchildren will also behave. How will they respect their elders? How will they treat their parents? How will they treat each other? How will they treat other communities and so on?
That is what we are calling culture. People are born and raised in cultures, and they give them a sense of direction, a sense of living, some meaning.
Culture is the totality of people's way of doing things. People's life, people's dreams, people's aspirations, people's fears. And culture is always changing dynamic. So that what we call Kamba culture today is not exactly Kamba culture 100 years ago. And what will be Kamba culture in 2090 is not exactly what Kamba culture is today.
At some point, we were not doing the dances the way we do them. Either we borrowed from other people or we innovated. Originally, we were not circumcising we learned that from the Tharaka, Mberia, and the Mberia say they no kabi watonile kuwaru kere mundu airengwa roiro. That's a statement from the Mberia and the Embu, and they say that it is the Maasai who showed them how to cut when they met them in Ruiru, or in that the neighborhood of Ruiru. That is subject to argument. Some sections of the Kamba might have acquired or borrowed the art of circumcision from the Mount Kenya area, others from further south, okay? And so we changed from being a people without a circumcision to a people who are extremely devoted to cutting. And there are a lot of things that change.
There are changes that are going to emerge, and therefore culture must resonate with what is happening globally. We must also respond to what is happening globally. I think issues of, for example, witchcraft is just a question of perception. In our culture, for example, we will say that somebody who is sick but we don't understand where the disease came from, we say he has been bewitched. To be cured, then you go to a witch doctor, somebody who will try to cure you. Now, in the Western context, there are some diseases that are very difficult. They are not necessarily physical diseases, and you go to a psychologist or psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist just discusses with you and says that he understands you and so on, and tells you do this, behave this way, and your disease will disappear. So as far as culture is concerned, certain aspects of culture will change moving forward, and I can't say they are necessarily bad. I think we must ask ourselves, how do we adopt them? If you get sick today, you go to the hospital, you go to buy drugs from the pharmacist. But where did those drugs come from? They came from our traditional indigenous culture.
So I want us to understand what we mean by culture is the totality of people's way of life, and that totality includes not only the food they eat, not only the language they speak, not only the social structure, not only the institutions in the society, but also in terms of aspirations and dreams and wishes, etc.
Every civilized community worth its salt loves digging into its cultural base, because that is a library to know how they lived and the others. And so to think that you can ignore your culture and take other people's culture and be comfortable, this is very strange.
You find yourself mimicking other people, you know? And I would just give you in this Nairobi, you are marrying a Mkamba, and then you are going to tell your mother and your sisters to go and stand at the gate in Runda and sing. What songs will they sing? Because that was not part of our practice. They are lost.
You can't understand other cultures if you don't understand your own.
And the way you have always been living, we say this is how God wanted. So this is the culture is embracing the entire way of life. So anyone, I repeat, anyone who thinks that one can't do it, one can do away with the traditional culture, and this is a lost person.
There's something they call in religion syncretism. They've just mixed too many of the cultures around them that they look lost. And I think one of the challenging things is the interaction in the modern world that never used to be there. So a person is growing up in Nairobi, and the neighbor is a Luo, and the other one is a Gikuyu, and the other one is a Giriama. And kind of without attention, they just end up picking bits and pieces. And sometimes they just pick the bits and pieces that are glorious and fun to have. And so they end up having no grounding in anything.
If you don't know your culture, then you are nobody.
That's what the Kiswahili would say, mukosa kabila. You have a little of this and a little of that. Now, it is really important for one to know one's culture. I can't repeat that, I can't overemphasize that, because a culture defines you. It gives you identity.
When Europeans came here, they were selling their cultures. You go to China, they love their culture. You go to Japan, every important civilization loves its culture. And if Africans do not love their culture, then they are lost people.
When people are going for payment of dowry, everybody has begun talking of rurasho, as if the other people do not have a word. So some friends of mine and I have just said, we will either call it udhoni or it is ngasia, and we will use our own words. As long as it is not a Gikuyu marrying our daughter, and even if it's a Gikuyu marrying our daughter, it will be rurasho to them, it will be ngasia to us.
I'm a Kamba man, and I act from the Kamba background, to analyze the rest of the world.